Let's talk about EDC Tactical. I ordered from them a milled aluminum receiver with a custom engraved magwell and safety selector for about $110-ish, give or take, shipped. Now I want to talk about both the quality of the receiver as well as the quality of the customer service, and we're going to be covering both of those, starting with the customer service. On May 19th, I sent over my order and all of the images that I wanted engraved onto my receiver. I put in an especially large amount of work on these images to make sure that not only they didn't have as much work to do on their end to get them to work properly on the receiver, but also so that the result would be more something that I expected and something that I'd like. And 8 days after that, on May 30th, my FFL had sent over his information and they had everything they needed to send me my lower receiver. Now, on the page where you order your custom receiver, as well as in the email that they send you confirming your order, they warn you that it will be roughly a lead time of 30 days. That they generally try to get it done earlier, but sometimes things happen, and I understand that sometimes things do happen. I used to work in a hardware store, so I understand a lead is discussing the planning process. We're talking about deciding how we're going to get these logos on here, how we are going to create the final product. And sure, 30 days lead time, especially for someone who just sends you some raw images and doesn't actually have them cut out nicely or ready to go, that makes sense. 30 days, sure, why not? You have a lot of orders to deal with, and you also have a decent bit of work in Photoshop, prepping them to be put onto the lower. I maintained patient for a couple months. Upon requesting an update on my receiver, which was on July 12th, I received an automated response saying, "We received your message and we normally try to respond within 1 to 2 business days." And that's perfect. I actually like receiving these sort of messages. That way I know that my message did go through and they'll be getting back to me soon. However, that wasn't the case. Until editing, I actually completely forgot that I requested 2 updates. The first one they completely ignored. Finally, on July 26th, 2 weeks following when I requested an update, they gave me my update, telling me that custom orders usually take 30 days of a lead time, which I knew, and that from your order date, it will generally take 8 to 10 weeks before they ship. Now, I did not know that, and I didn't see that anywhere in any of the emails that I received, so it's nice that you have to sit in limbo wondering for 3 months where your product is before it finally shows up. And finally, on August 15th, almost 3 months following my order being placed, my lower receiver arrived at my FFL. Now, I understand certain products, especially custom products, do have much more work involved with them, especially regarding customer satisfaction, than just a standard bulk produced, ready to go item. Now, what I don't understand is taking so long to inform your customers what's going on. It shouldn't take 2 weeks to send an email. The email was literally two sentences. You can even see it right here. It's literally just telling me what they probably bulk send to everybody who messages them asking, "Hey, where's my product?" Additionally, yeah, I'm not super knowledgeable on the topic here, but I don't think it takes 8 to 10 weeks to make something like this. If you have a 30-day lead time followed by the time that it takes to engrave these sort of things, I feel like it probably doesn't take that long, 8 to 10 weeks, to do this. You know, you have a 30-day lead time of creating the designs. To be fair, I gave them pretty easy designs to work with, but apparently it takes them 8 to 10 weeks to just engrave these little suckers and then spray down with some Cerakote. Yet again, maybe I'm just not knowledgeable enough about this sort of stuff, but I don't picture it taking that long, you know? I don't question that they mill their own receivers. It's just, you know, I'm sure that they already have tons of these ready to go, and then they mill on the engravings and spray them down with the Cerakote. Now, I do like the service that EDC Tactical provides. Doing custom engravings has a pretty big risk factor involved. They claim that all sales are fine on, that they will not send them back because they are custom made to order. But I do wonder what their policy is if they just straight up butcher somebody's design and it's nothing what they expected. I guess we'll have to look around and see if anybody else has had experiences like that, because mine is honestly pretty good. And that's where we're going to jump into the quality aspect of this. Now, I say that it's pretty good, and I'm talking specifically about the logos. I like the way that the engravings turned out on this. Here's the magwell engraving. You can see that it turned out pretty nicely, really crisp, clean lines, even though the image may have even been a little bit pixelated on the sides. It still turned out very nice, and it seems like their engraving machine has a good way of dealing with the sort of things like resolution and adjusting to make lines not jagged if they are in fact jagged in the pictures. I wouldn't mind it being a little bit deeper, but that's really the only complaint that I have. I still think it turned out great. They also have color fill options if you're into that sort of thing. I was thinking about doing color fill, but I figured with burnt bronze, not a whole lot of colors look great with color fill. Over here, we have our safety engravings. Yet again, even for very, very small images, the quality of these and the clarity came out really, really well. And I'm pretty satisfied with that. It will be the same on both sides as well, if I can find the frame. Additionally, on the opposite side of the magwell, we have the EDC Tactical engraving. So they have to get their name on there somehow, and they put it on the opposite side of your custom engraving. Now, while we're talking about the quality, we need to move on and talk about the Cerakote quality. Honestly, it's pretty good. So I ordered a burnt bronze Cerakote from 2 separate providers, and I was worried that they would not match very well. I haven't actually mated them, obviously, since I haven't assembled the receiver. But even just holding them up next to each other, they look pretty much the same. Not enough for me to notice anyway. I don't have any, FN 50 Shades of FDE going on or anything like that. So now we've talked about the Cerakote as well as the engraving. Those are the 2 custom aspects of this. Now, they just make their own receivers and then put custom engravings on it. The thing is it looks to me that their milling process as well as their quality control on the actual receivers, which, like I said, guaranteed they just bulk make these and then toss on an engraving and toss on a Cerakote, just pulling these out of bins and going at it. Isn't that great? These receivers aren't incredible. I mean, they still feel solid and they're nice, but it's just the attention to detail and the little things that aren't that great. One example is if you look at the bottom here, you can see that there's a noticeable score line all the way up through the grip, and that line extends all the way through here inside of the trigger guard. Additionally, I don't think that this has been tumbled or sanded or even looked over very well by anybody. There's a small marking right here on the upper part of the magwell. There you can get a closer look at it. This isn't anything that's going to affect function. It's just, fit and finish type things that, they should be looking at, and they should be tumbling these and, making sure that there aren't issues like this. But this is purely aesthetic. This has nothing to do with the quality or the function of the firearm. You can see here, this is a very noticeable ding taken out during the milling process. I don't know if this was a defect in the metal that they just milled around and then decided, well, smooth it out the best we can and send it out of here. And really just all the way around, the milling is not incredibly clean on these things. Yeah, so you can see there almost what looks like flashing of some sort down in that corner. Now, it seems pretty solid to me. I sort of pecked at it with my fingernail to see if maybe it was something that was loose or that would end up crunching off over time. But it appears to be fine. It's just something that was not great in the metal. Maybe their head on the milling device isn't that sharp. Whatever it is, it's causing for very, very small but very noticeable defects in the milling process. And overall, a less desirable product, especially when you think about the fact that you can go buy an Aero aluminum receiver for like 40 bucks on sale, or you can even get, the old Poverty Pony. You can purchase an Anderson lower for, like 35, something like that on sale. I think I've even seen them as low as 30, which is crazy to think about when you're spending over triple that for something that has, defective milling. If you just bought a receiver straight up from EDC Tactical, you would want it to be crisp and clean and in great condition. It's just all the custom work on this obviously jacks the price up, so the receivers aren't worth anything particularly more than an Anderson or more than an Aero. It's simply that you can get custom work done on them, and the custom work is pretty good. As far as I'm concerned, they do a decent job on what they're charging, or what they're upcharging for, rather. It's just that they're starting with a base product that's really no different and does nothing to set them apart from the other competition. It's just a nice custom job. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this lower together, and once we have it all assembled, I will come back and talk about any other issues that I may have ran into, and if there's actually anything worse than just these small, non-consequential cosmetic defects in the lower receiver. Everything went together pretty well, with not a whole lot of fight. The only issue that I did have was installing the mag catch on this side, right on these 2 little paws here. The mag catch itself got hung up a little bit on the Cerakote, and actually ended up taking a little bit of the Cerakote out when I popped it back out because I could tell it was getting hung up. Once that Cerakote got cleared, it operated fine. A little more regarding tolerances. When I was putting in the drop-in trigger, this is a single-stage rise armament, I was trying to get the trigger down far enough to where I could get the anti-rotation pins to slide through, and that hole would just not line up, and no matter how much force I put on it with my hand, I could not get the trigger, the drop-in trigger, to go all the way down to the base of the receiver here, except in the back. And so what I ended up having to do to get that front to seat properly was I popped the hammer on the trigger group up and hit it with a gunsmithing hammer, you know, one of the soft-tipped hammers, and had to smack it into place until it finally lined up, and then I managed to wiggle it around a little bit to get the pins through. Probably just some burrs or something that they didn't fully get out of there. Now it seems to work fine. I did notice that they missed a little bit of material on this Overwatch symbol right here. You can see right near the tip, there's still little bits inside of there that they didn't fully get when they were cutting this one out. And you can tell that they actually got the entirety of the marking carved, whereas on the other side they didn't quite get it all the way there. I also noticed, however, that this side isn't nearly as deep. This side is a more shallow cut than this one over here, which might have something to do with it, but it's nothing that's going to be a huge make or break. Wow, this is a horrible lower receiver type thing. And I actually did run into a small issue with the mag, or with the bolt catch hanging up when it was getting popped down by the, when it was getting popped up by the follower on the magazine. But all I did was just sort of finger fuck it back and forth for a second, and then finally it was fine. Now I know for the most part, lower receivers aren't going to give you a whole lot of issues on function. It's normally going to be a matter of the bolt or the gas system on ARs. And since everything functions right here when I'm not shooting, I can't imagine it's not going to not function while I am shooting. So bottom line, if you're looking for the ability to put a decent engraving on a receiver, as well as a decent Cerakote for around $100, with the luxury of not having to look people in the eye when you hand them your hideous memes to have engraved onto a firearm, then this is an alright option. Like I said, the receiver isn't great. It's not incredible quality. It's definitely got its issues, and it could have a much better fit and finish and a little bit of a better polish on it. But I have no doubt that this will function fine, and I think that I don't really have too much of a right to be super anal about this because it is a decent product. The biggest issue with ordering from these guys is going to be that you are going to have a very, very long wait time. You're going to have to wait potentially 3 months or even more if you are getting a custom engraving as well as a custom Cerakote. Now, that could have just been because they had a sale and they had way too much, way too much on their plate. I don't know for sure. But I have to say, if I were ever going to order one of these again, and if I even ever had a plan to get Cerakotes or engravings done, I think I would just try to find someone local who will do custom work instead of going through the process of waiting on them for months and months, wondering, when am I going to finally get my firearm? If you have any questions about my experience with EDC Tactical, their products, or my build, feel free to drop them down below, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And thanks a lot for watching.